Thank you. Good morning, councillors, officers, viewers. Thank you for attending this morning. This scrutiny committee meeting is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government Wales Election Act 2021, which will operate alongside council standing orders. The council standing orders in code of conduct will apply at all times, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. I remind members that this meeting is being streamed to the public. Please, and those attending online, either switch on or switch off your cameras as you feel most comfortable with when you're not speaking, to ensure there is no unnecessary background noise. And I also remind members to ensure their chat function is switched on and to use the facility to indicate to me when they wish to speak on a particular item. Please don't speak until I invite you to. A recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded to the public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting, and a Welsh translation is available upon request. Thank you. Neil, do we have any apologies?
We've got apologies from Councillor Baker West Hedger, and just been advised that David Baldwin's to give urgent apologies.
All right, okay, that's who's going to pick up Mr. Walden's question, please. Thank you. There's quite a bit on housing, I think. Right, any declarations of interest? Other than we probably all got an interest in poverty. Okay, minutes of the previous meeting, please. For accuracy. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chair. Just one thing. I think we all agreed last time that when we had actions that we had dates next to them to ensure that so when an action was completed or not, we'd have a date next to it. So you could just add that to the.
Yeah, Chair. Thank you. There are 6 comments and recommendations contained within the minutes of the last meeting. And I've talked to the clerk before the meeting, and how would you prefer to deal with these in these scrutiny reports at the end, or would you like to deal with them now?
No, that's fine. I chased that responses, Chair, for these, and as soon as we get responses from the officers, we can send it to the committee. Right.
So there are 6 comments or recommendations within the minutes, so they'll roll forward now into the scrutiny officer's report. Yeah. Are there any other points on the minutes? No? Sorry.
Can I just be positive and thank you, Samantha, for getting the draft minutes out swiftly after last meeting? It's very helpful. I don't have to keep remembering.
Thank you. Unfortunately, she's not very well at the moment. Right. Ms. Evans, are you going to lead on the scrutiny reports?
Yes, Chair. Happy to do that. So, morning, everybody. So, this morning I'm here to talk about and introduce the anti-poverty strategy for Newport City Council for 2025 to 2028. So, the strategy itself has been discussed and through within the senior leadership team, the corporate leadership team, at the end of last year, and as a result of that conversation, it was very clear that not only did we need to present the strategy itself to committee, but also a comprehensive action plan. So I led on a number of workshops with staff across council to develop the action plan that is appended to the strategy. So within today's documents, you'll see the strategy itself, the action plan, and then also the terms of reference for a newly established anti-poverty board that I'll be chairing over the coming 12 months, which has a specific remit of overseeing the progress on the action plan. So just in relation to the strategy itself, there's obviously an introduction and context there, which I'm sure members have had a look at, but also just to bring members' attention to the fact that the strategy is focused on 3 specific areas in relation to reducing poverty across the city. So the first area is about preventing individuals and households and communities falling into poverty. The second area is about delivering effective services that can support people in the short term that are in poverty. And then the third area is about providing pathways and longer term solutions for people to recover from the impacts of poverty. And you'll notice that those themes are, throughout the strategy, but they're also then those three areas that we focused in relation to the action plan. So those are the three themes and within the strategy itself, and also just to say that there are a number of principles that are aligned to the strategy. So the first, and they are within they're on page 14 of the pack. And those principles are that we work in partnership and collaboration to deliver the strategy, that we listen and learn from those impacted by poverty across the city, that we use data to help us make decisions about how we're going to tackle poverty, and then finally that we develop and enhance our community-based approach to delivering support to our communities. And those are the four principles that are talked about within the strategy itself. Final part of the strategy talks very high level about what we're going to do, how we're going to achieve it from a prevention point of view, from a support point of view, and also in developing those pathways out of poverty. But for me, and I hope that committee members will agree, that the meat on the bone, if you like, is contained within the action plan, which, as I say, those couple of workshops were undertaken with officers from across the council. So you'll see quite wide-ranging actions that we as a council can, we believe we can deliver on in the next 12 months. And then expand out that action plan. It is a dynamic plan, and it will, even though this is the outline of the plan that's coming to committee today, this will, in the next 12 months, some of the actions will be concluded and completed, and then further actions will be added to this as we go through the year. So that's what I mean, I see it as a very much a dynamic document that will change and evolve as progress is made. And as I say, the action plan itself focuses again on those three themes. So the first part of the action plan outlines the things that we will do to prevent individuals from falling into poverty. The next part of the action plan will talks about how we will support people that are currently feeling the impact of poverty. And then the third theme again is about the work that we plan to do to develop those pathways for people across the city to move out of poverty and recover from poverty. And then, as I say, the final document within the pack is the terms of reference that have been developed for the new board to oversee the progress made on the plan over the next 12 months. The Chair, I'll stop there and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Before I ask you for questions, Councillor Petroni, was there anything you wanted to add at this point?
I will, but I think Councillor Lacey's, unless you
Yes, of course.
Obviously, this is coming new into my portfolio, but it does already touch on the social services anyway, because there's a lot. We see people falling into social services sometimes because of poverty or because they're in social services that end in poverty. So, from a personal point of view, there's some things that I'm working on, which is about there's a great disparity of neurodivergent people that fall into poverty. That's something that I can look at personally within my area, and also looking at how we can help our carers be able to work and care. And so there's some things within my. I think this is a plan that touches a lot of partners. We're not an island in this. We have to work with a multitude of partners, and I think that's a good way to push it forward, I think.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's important to say we can't solve poverty alone. We would need, obviously, Welsh Government and UK Government to play a huge role, as they do, because of the benefit system. But what I would say is we can do our bit to help those residents struggling. We all know about the cost of living crisis, but we know that that's not the only reason. There's mental health reasons that someone might slip into poverty, family breakdown, you name it, all the social consequences of just life. And as a council, we usually pick up the pieces or come across at the crisis point. And I think this is our attempt to say, right, I love the fact we have a prevention piece, because as Laura rightly says, if we can prevent these key individuals going into the social service system, which is eventually what ends up happening, putting pressure on both our children and adults. If we can prevent that, it's better for them, it's better for us, and better for our society, full stop, to be honest. So I think this is what I'm key about this document, and there's a few things that I'm looking forward to all the questions, is it's a start, and it's iterative, and we will attempt to move, depending on what the evidence tells us, because as Ms. Evans says, you know, we be data led. I think for me that's critical. Where the evidence takes us, we must follow and then back that up with key actions that we know will have an outcome, a positive outcome, not just a tick box. So for me, this is a key strategy. We know that RCT is unequal. We know it's divided. Sometimes you just cross the road, quite literally, and there's just a night and day feel to people's everyday experiences and what they see in their daily lives. And this is our recognition of that and our first attempt at outlining a strategy to deal with that. But can we solve it ourselves? No.
Ms. Rodriguez, if you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, all I would like to add is that, I mean, a number of points have already been touched on, but for me, clearly, we've got to be very, very clear. We can't do this alone. You know, that is a really, really important factor here. We can do our bit, as Councillor Scrutiny has just said, but we need to look at the resources that we do have and how we can use them smartly and target in a way, and that's where place-based support in a preventative model, which is being out there in the community where our residents are, where we can have those meaningful conversations much earlier and help them much earlier. I think that's the key bit. So yeah, it's just a message about really, we can't do this alone, but we can certainly do the bit we've got with the resources that we do have.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sims, you're representing education this morning. Was there anything you wanted to add?
Good morning, Chair. Thank you. I think as Caroline has mentioned, many important points have been covered. This has provided a really helpful context for our education service to revisit our original documentation, which was the cost of living and reducing the cost of the school day strategy, which was launched a couple of years ago with schools. So having worked closely with the Strategic Director for Social Services and all of the team involved in this corporate strategy, it's given us a good basis to revisit our education specific strategy. So it's been really helpful.
Thank you. Before we go to questions, I'm really pleased that this has come to overview and scrutiny. It's the start of this strategy. It's only a 3-year strategy, so it's up to us here to make sure we get as much out of it as we possibly can. So to that end, I welcome questions. Who'd like to start, please?
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry about my voice there. Poverty is a human story. Actually recognising that you're in poverty is very difficult. Personally, if somebody's there suffering from poor income and everything, they try and get by day to day by their, own means, I suppose. And if somebody comes up and you say you're in poverty, you got to get them to accept that they agree that they're in poverty. How are those barriers overcome if you're going to provide services to them?
Please.
Yeah, I absolutely think the point I think you're making is that the language around poverty is very difficult, and for anybody to accept and to say that actually I'm in poverty is a real challenge. And one of the there's a lot of done and research that started actually about the language that we use around poverty and how it's very stigmatizing for people to then come forward and ask for help. So that's certainly something that we're going to be considering within the anti-poverty board. But one of the things that is within the plan is that we intend holding a minimum of 2 what we will call listening events with people, the people of Newport. And certainly those events are going to be a combination of listening to the views of people who and what their day-to-day issues are. But certainly one of the things that my feeling is that we must talk about within those events is the language that we use. And if there is a different narrative we can adopt to reduce the stigma of people coming forward and asking for support.
Thank you.
Councillor Fitzroy,
Councillor House makes a fantastic point. You know, there's a stigma attached to this, and you know, people are rightly proud and they don't want to be labelled. And I know, and Tanya is absolutely right. We have to get it right, language, but also how we position our support. So I'll give you an example. I've been visiting a lot of our primary schools, and there's a clothing in Lisbury Primary School where rather than parents who want to access clothing because they can't afford it, say, they don't frame it like that. And it's not just a room with a box full of clothes just stuffed in. They're on hangers. They're on different sizes. Like you feel when you go into a shop, right? And it's not here. You know, this is not where people go if it's if you're struggling. It's a room where you go, oh, do you need some clothes? And you go in and it feels like a shop. It feels like you're looking and picking up what you need. And that subtle difference has meant a sharp uptake in people accessing support they actually need, rather than labeling. And the door is always open. There's not a set time where someone goes in, so everyone knows if you go in at 2 o'clock, you go into that. People just go in, you don't know what you're going in for because the room is always available, and that has made a massive difference. So it's that, not only language but the feel of people accessing the support and resources when they need them in a time they need them in a non-stigma way. It's really important.
So that best practice shared with the schools around Newport.
Rebecca?
Exactly.
Glanasc has got a similar system. Glanasc has got a similar system. Okay.
So
I've got Councillor James.
Rebecca's on that.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Yes, that best practice is shared across schools, and the examples already shared are among many examples of strong practice across schools. I think it's important that schools consider a universal offer for all families to reduce that element of stigma which the strategic director referenced. So we bring schools together to share their practice in a professional learning network of family engagement officers. And our next event, for example, will be supported by input from Child Poverty Action Group. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just add one more element to this, key to understanding and working with people who may be in poverty, whether they recognise that themselves or not. What is key is understanding the experiences lots of these families have gone through. So we have a very skilled and trained workforce in trauma-informed practice. And that is really about absolutely understanding the experiences a lot of these families will have gone through, whether it's a parent or somebody in prison, whether it's domestic abuse, whether it's substance use. These are very, very regular common theme that we see in these families' lives, and they cause all sorts of traumatic experiences. So it's really important that officers are skilled and trained, and we do invest in that training to make sure that they are equipped to have those really sensitive conversations with the right language, with the right approach, but absolutely recognising some of the background stuff that may have gone on that's led them to the way they live their lives now. So it's that kind of wider understanding of where they've come from as well and what's impacted.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor James, Councillor Evans and Councillor Mayor, I think. Councillor James.
Councillor James has gone to look for a charger, so perhaps you could skip to me, Chair.
Councillor Evans in first, and then we'll come to you, Councillor Mayor.
I'm happy to Councillor Mayor.
Stay with that.
Am I on?
Very cross party, yes, we're happy that you come on.
Steady on.
Sorry, I'm confused.
Yeah, you're speaking, Councillor Mayor.
Oh, thank you, Chair. The bit that seems to be missing, I mean, this is excellent, and we should be a catalyst for change, and that's one of our main roles, and so this goes a long way towards that. But there's no mention of credit unions or payday loans, or one of the major causes of poverty among people, and we should be enhancing, encouraging, supporting credit unions, or the credit union, especially in Newport, as it's so successful already, in order to help people out of poverty.
Okay, do you want us to answer that one? Councillor, you can carry on. No? Councillor Petronio?
Yeah, well, actually included if it's not in there, because Councillor Mayor makes a great point. Just to, I mean, we do need to put in the paperwork so everyone's sizing. We are working with credit unions along with the Welsh Government. For example, it's a new pilot scheme with the Welsh Government around using credit unions if people fall arrears with council tax. So it's a brand new scheme. There's only 3 local authorities in Wales taking it up, and we put our hands up for that. And basically, in essence, we can maybe put it in more detail in the report, in the strategy, as Councillor Mayor rightly points out, where credit unions offer up to a £2,000 loan to support those who are struggling with council tax payments, to make those payments in a more managed way in their terms and their ability to afford it, but also introduce them to credit unions and offering them the financial support rather than go to, as Councillor Mayor rightly points out, payday loan providers or loan sharks effectively who charge them exorbitant rates and puts them even more in hock, which they can't get out, which is a dark spiral. So yes, if it's not in there, I did read it, but I didn't see it in there, so Councillor Mayor's right, we need to include it in there. But just to reassure Councillor Mayor, we are developing that programme in the next financial year.
You can tell me that, Councillor Mayor? Or...
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I presume that as this progresses, it will. I mean, this is a plan, an outline, that all the various departments who have got a relevant interest will tap into this and add to the depth of how this report works. So the stuff that the leader has just pointed out, I presume will link into areas, probably all the areas, in some meaningful way as this develops.
If you want to come in on this, Ms. Evans, please do, but we'll take it up as a formal action that we'll carry forward. But that entirely.
Yeah, if I could just think, I think you're absolutely right, so Mayor, that is an important aspect to add to the action plan. And in fact, we had to draw a line under the draft action plan to bring it to committee. But since it's been, we've drawn that line, we have had continued conversation with officers across the council, and in fact one of our officers in the Trading Standards Department has raised exactly the point that you have raised about the use of credit unions, but also understanding illegal money lending. And there is a presentation actually here at the Civic Centre on the 9th of April in Committee Room 7 on exactly that topic. So I'm going to be encouraging as many officers as possible that are a part of that anti-poverty board to attend that, so we can then roll that learning out across the way that we deliver services.
Councillor Evans?
Thank you, Chair. I did a little bit of research going back to 2006 when the first child poverty strategy was launched, with the aim to ensure that there was no child poverty by 2020. That's 28 pages long. 2015 it was relaunched. 2024 it's relaunched again, with the aim to reduce worst effects of child poverty in the next decade. I guess getting a little bit cynical of these strategies, because what we haven't done, what we don't do, is lessons learned. Are these realistic targets? Are they achievable? I don't think it is personally. I'd like to be proved wrong, but we seem to go round and round and round. The strategies get bigger and bigger, the actions get smaller and smaller. And I guess I welcome the Brevitys report, but I'd like to see, right, what's happened in the past? Where are we? Where did we start? Where were we 10 years ago? Are we going in the right direction? We're going, what lessons have we learned? And I think they're real great overall aims and objectives, but I guess I'm a little bit cynical because we just keep relaunching things. Well, yeah, but what have you actually achieved? And I think that is important as anything. I can't see, that in the report.
I think you make a valid point.
First go.
Sure.
Yeah.
I understand, because obviously having looked back at as yourself and recognise that we have as a nation had a number of child poverty strategies. I think for me, I would say this because I'm leading it, but I think there is a slight difference insofar as we've never had an anti-poverty board set up as a council that will now oversee the progress that we intend to make in relation to the action plan. So in 12 months' time, we will be coming back to this committee with clear evidence of the so what question. So what difference has this particular strategy made over the next 12 months? How we've progressed the actions or not. But that will be, so it'll be very transparent to committee about, what progress we have made. And I think, in reality, and it's already been highlighted in this meeting, the council on its own doesn't control all the levers that contribute to people that are in poverty and experiencing poverty. However, there are many levers that are within our control, and I do believe that this action plan will be able to pull many of those levers in the right direction, and hope to be sitting here in 12 months' time to demonstrate that to you.
And what about lessons learned from past strategies and plans?
So lessons learned, I think, I just want to elaborate slightly on that previous point, is there are indicators that are called the Welsh Index of Multiple Deprivation Indicators. I'm sure you're very familiar with, and they are due to be redone and released in 25-26. So on a bigger scale, we should be able to see if those strategies have made any difference to the areas of deprivation within Newport. If nothing else, it will give us a very up-to-date picture of what the landscape in Newport looks like in relation to those indicators. So lessons learned, I think probably one of the lessons learned, which is why there's been the development of the anti-poverty board, is the degree of oversight and accountability to push strategies forward and the action as a result of that. So for me, that's one of the things that has come out of, strategies are all very well and good. They shouldn't just sit on a shelf. They should then be activated by a very clear action plan. So that's one of the lessons that I've learned throughout my career, which is why it's being presented in this way today to committee.
So just come back, I appreciate you haven't been here that long, but the Welsh defamation index has been good for a long time, I think. So why have we got 10 years ago, 5 years ago? As a just they were going up or down.
Of course, and I think what we can do, so that is something that is not specifically run by the council. That's a Wales-wide, that those issues you'll be very aware. But I think for me that the great thing about it being done this year is we will have some excellent comparative data as to where we were and where we are. And it's that data that the Anti-Poverty Board will focus on to say this, and then trying to understand why we've made good progress in some areas, or if we haven't, why not?
So perhaps we should have some information about where we are currently, which wards in Newport are we still absolutely, so we can just focus on.
And certainly on the first part of the action plan, that is the first action under the prevent theme, to look at that data and use that data to inform us going forward.
Councillor Victoria.
I think this is a never-ending war.
Yep.
So I wouldn't call them relaunches. We have to adapt and change to the ever-changing landscape, and I think it will ever be thus. But taking your point about what, if we can't solve it, what impact and how can we evidence it to all councillors that we're having the impact, that this structure is making a difference. I take your point. On the wider multiple deprivation index, it's useful, this is my personal view, it's useful for the degree. So as a broad capture around a ward. I think the step change for me, and I think for us, is more focused identification of families and individuals that are particularly in trouble. And I'll give you one key area of work is what we're doing with the Shared Resource Centre, which is Single View of the Child, which is a really innovative piece of work where we focus on what children we think. We already know through all our different systems are maybe particularly experiencing trouble, might be at greater risk of falling into poverty, and critically intervening not just with the child but with the family and giving parents, particularly parents who are struggling for whatever reason, the support they need to help themselves get out of the situation, because ultimately that will help the child. So I think that level of focus and detail and understanding, not just at a ward level or a city level, but almost street by house level, so we can granularly understand what's happening, what our parents are feeling, our children are experiencing, and intervene and put the right resources in place in a focused manner. So I think for me, that's the key lesson learned. And to be blunt, in 2006, we didn't have that technological capability. Today we do. Are we actually now? Yes, we are. And I think for me, that's the key lesson of, we can have all the broad indicators we like, but actually to demonstrate impact to this community, to yourself, Chair, to the wider council, we have to go right down to the house street level.
Yeah, I accept that, but clearly it's very important. And we started with the partnership with Bernardo's in 2010 and recognised early intervention from the very start. But I guess it's still down to numbers. In some ways of, you're saying you're helping 100 families or whatever it is off there, and then us coming back in a year's time saying we've got all of those 100 families, or that type of information will be helpful for us. Obviously no names or things like that, but I think that would just be very helpful.
I just, sorry,
no, I was going to say it's a difficult thing to capture though, isn't it? Because you could have helped those 100 families, but at the same time you've got another 100 families that move in like there's a recognisable of getting that data right and getting valid data. It's all well and good having data, but that data's actually we've got to be able to present that in a meaningful format to you. And I think what Tanya said is this, having that accountability of a board. This is the big thing. It's like it's all very good having all these strategies that underpin our work, but then when we're not answerable to scrutiny or to the council, then what is the point? We have to be answerable to, and I think that's what this if Anti-Poverty, this is what this does, is that we'll sit here, we present this on an annual basis, the board will meet on a quarterly basis or more, and it's really about driving that forward, the same as then the partners, the Marmot, the RPBs and everything else, it all links in, and then we're answerable, rather than just once a year our KPIs, this is what we've met, because like I said, that data for data's sake is actually pointless, but we now are in a capability of being able to present data in such a meaningful way with the different AI tools that we've got, or the different reporting tools that we've got, that actually for somebody that doesn't even know data can understand that data, and that's where it becomes a little bit more I think clever, because you don't need that data background to understand the data. Therefore you can question us or question everybody that's at you. You're not just bamboozling with numbers all the time. There's a meaningful questionable answers that I think are very clear.
Absolutely, but let's add to that. I think accountability in the scrutiny process is absolutely fundamental and key, because Councillor Evans or Councillor Jenkins or Councillor Harris and yourself and those online holding whoever's in power to account on this agenda is absolutely vital. And that is one of the key mechanisms to hold any administration to delivery of this, because ultimately accountability drives us forward, and I'm really, really passionate about this subject. And I know that yourselves in the scrutiny process is fundamental to making sure we make progress.
Just talking about bamboozling, it was something I did a school vote before about us being a Marmot region and what had it meant. And there are a lot of blank faces around. Why do we keep making words like a Marmot region, Flensburg's Marmot region? I mean, what does that mean to me out of the public? Perhaps you can feed it back to whoever decides on these. And I appreciate we know Mr. Marmot now, because Mr. Mayor has talked about him, but I just think it'd be helpful if any public read it or read it. We're a Marmot region, so what does that mean?
Yeah, I've talked to the officers at meeting about using acronyms. We're going to look at this, and I think I asked what one acronym meant, and nobody knew what it meant. So, and that's what the education officers done this morning.
I think, Chair, that's a good point, and I think we should put the Marmot principles in here, clearly outlined in human language with that and the acronyms. I think that's a fair point.
Councillor Dunn, Councillor Evans.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor James.
Hi, thank you, and sorry about quickly needing to leave to get my charger. I've actually got a few questions. Should I ask them all at once? Should I, and what's your preference, Chair?
Ask them one at a time, please, and then we get a chance for an answer, and then you have to come back and tell us what your question was, because everyone's forgotten it.
No problem, thanks, Chair. So on the listening events, I was quite pleased to hear you share that you realise that there's a stigma associated with it. My concern with in-person listening events is that only some people are going to feel in a place where they're ready to show up and be that vulnerable. You're taking vulnerable people and you're putting them in a situation where they may feel even more vulnerable, because it's one thing to admit internally that you're struggling, and it's quite another to go somewhere and admit it to a room full of people that you may or may not know. So is there going to be another way that residents can share their experiences with online surveys or anything like that?
So certainly we will be looking at other ways of engaging with people living within Newport, but just to try and give you a little bit of reassurance around the listening events, we will be giving careful consideration about how we brand them, how we market them. There'll also be an opportunity not just for people to come and talk about their experiences, if that's what they want to do, but also the plan is that there's a number of support agencies that will be there, so it'll be almost like a bit of an information sharing event as well. So again, which I appreciate people can hold a bit of stigma attached to it, but we will be giving a lot of thought to ensure that those events are very sensitively marketed and delivered. But yes, certainly we'll also give some thought about how we can take that sort of communication and listening wider than just face to face.
Sorry, there's someone else coming in.
No, you got
Back on that. Yeah, just to add to that, we already run very well organised events around. We've rebranded them, but previously people would know them as cost of living events. But obviously we've rebranded them now to Live Wise, Be Wise events, where they are fantastically attended. People engage with them, and we have a whole host of partners available for people to talk to, whatever that issue is and whatever matters to them. So we will be using those events also to kind of capitalise on that and kind of get the feedback that we want in relation to this strategy. So we do have things already set up that work very well, and we will be looking to align both things together because we know that works. It's a format that works and people engage very well.
One thing that could be considered maybe is, you know, some of these people might already be accessing support through preventions or other services. Could it be, you know, asking these staff members to go through sort of like a survey one-to-one, so it's not online, it's not hidden, it's from a trusted person, and you're still getting, you know, because I assume that part of this is getting the data you need, but also making sure that you know who that person is so you can get them the support that they need. Would that be another thing that we could consider as part of the plan?
Yeah, we could certainly consider that.
Yeah, Councillor Petroni.
Absolutely, and I would hope part of our LIFT programme, which is that kind of one-to-one identifying those who might be eligible for financial support, but either we're aware of or we weren't aware of, but someone was aware of, that we can get that personal connection and that personal dialogue going, because as you rightly say, some people just don't want to turn out to a public event in any shape or form. But if we can reach out to those who, let's be honest, if you're struggling financially, most people shy away from it, put their heads in the sand, and it's about us saying, don't, we're here to help in a manner that you're comfortable engaging with us. And I think you're absolutely right. If we can get that one-to-one through the LIFT programme potentially, that would be the most appropriate way.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep, next question. Lots on education, which is really good to see. I've seen nothing in the report or the action plan specifically on increasing free school meal uptake. You'll all know, of course, that free school meals isn't just about making sure your child has lunch paid for in school, but there are extra things such as school uniform support as well. It also means that the school gets additional funds to help support your children. So should increasing free school meal uptake be a part of this plan, considering it's such a good package of support?
Yeah, we did touch on that earlier. I don't know if maybe you had a IT problem, but Miss Sims, yeah, you coming on?
Thank you, Chair. Certainly within our service plan, there are objectives to increase the uptake of free school meals, but also the universal free school meal offer, which we monitor the uptake across our schools at the primary phase. And you're absolutely right, Councillor. In addition to the eligibility to a meal during the school day, the School Essentials Grant enables parents to access funding for other, you know, equipment and uniform, as you've described. So it is certainly something that we do prioritise.
Intent?
Yeah. I can only see Rebecca Sims now. I can't see the rest of the room.
Oh, right.
So I was waiting to see if someone else was going to needed to come in.
Well, you know, I think you've had the expert reply.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. On the NEAT identification pilot, then the sound it's a bit wobbly now that there's more people in the room, but so I'm not sure if this has been mentioned. So the NEAT identification pilot is to, as I understand from the report, identify children in year 6 who are at risk of being NEETs post 16. I mean, we're not going to know whether or not that's been successful until how many years of high school again? Is it 5? It's been a while since I was in there myself, but you know, 5 or 6 years later, we're not going to know whether or not that's been successful, and that falls outside the scope of this programme. So what what are we going to do to ensure that we know whether or not we're on the right track?
But NEAT is fairly well measured, but please, Ms. Ryan. Yes.
Yeah, and I think you're probably referring to, I think, understanding the triggers piece of work that we were doing previously in Newport with very much a pilot, and there was an identification kind of toolkit that we worked up with education, so that we identified children in years 5 and 6. And those then, as they're going into high school in years 7 and 8. And we particularly did that on the back of research that showed us in Newport that in years 5 and 6, attendance at school is excellent in the 19%. And then once they go into years 7 and 8, and this massive, great big scary world where it's not so intimate as it is in primary school, attendance massively drops. And we were losing lots of children into out of school or out of education arrangement or not in education at all. And that was linked to how do we support school attainment, but also how do we be more upstream and recognising the risks and challenges for some of these children so that we don't lose them, so that once they're out of education, the risk of becoming involved in all sorts of things like exploitation and criminality and all those things. You know, that's all in a particular research that's been covered out. Now, that was a pilot that we did, and it was incredibly successful. It was on a very small scale, and Rebecca may know about it. It might have been just before Rebecca's time with us, but it was a multi-agency response. There was no additional resources. It was very much about current systems, what do we do, and how can we work differently together. Now, we've been waiting a long time for an evaluation report to come out, and I've been chasing that myself since Christmas, but I can assure you there is an evaluation report that is due out in the next month or so, I believe, because it's been quite tricky to get interviews with a number of individuals who were part of that pilot. But I understand that evaluation report is coming, and we certainly want to use that as a platform to look at, okay, what worked, what didn't work, and what do we need to take forward if we want to take anything forward. But I know that there was a huge amount of passion and buy-in for that model, but we need to see the evidence base for that now through this report. Is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you. So it's effectively going to be.
Sorry, before you go on, am I misunderstanding what NEAT is all about? I thought it was not an employment, education or training after school. You were talking about within school. Yeah.
Well, this particular pilot was recognising that there was quite a large percentage of children dropping out of education from year 6 into high school in years 7 and 8, and so we know we lose those children, so they're not in education, employment, training, etc. So this particular piece of work was about engaging with these children whilst they're still in primary school, so that they have a trusted relationship as they move through the high school tiers, and will keep them in education because they're safe, they know they've got somebody to talk to. The NEAT that you're talking about there, absolutely, that was a very specific 16 plus kind of approach where we look at, okay, those children who are 16 who do not want to go into sixth form, but actually there's a whole range of opportunities there for them. How do we work with them to keep them in some form of training or education?
Thank you for clarifying that. Sorry, Councillor James, back to you.
Thank you, and thanks for clarifying that understanding, because that was my understanding as well. So that was why I referenced the 5-6 years later. I think someone else has already covered that many of the actions don't have timescales. Is that right?
Yes, indeed. And I'm going to take that up in our comments to the reports. Okay.
Thank you. Last one then on homelessness. So theme 1 references homelessness quite prominently in the main report. However, if you scroll to the action plan, just one action directly references homelessness, and that's not in theme 1, it's actually in theme 2. I suppose a few questions on that. I mean, 1, do you think that's enough, considering how prominent that is in the report? But also, what about people who are already homeless? And I don't just mean street homeless, I mean people in temporary accommodation. Homelessness is really expensive. I think back to my own situation 11 years ago. It's just before I moved to Newport. I was in temporary accommodation. I'd lost everything that I owned with my kids, you know, so I had to replace furniture. I had to, you know, I was limited in what I could buy for us all, because I didn't have means to cook. And to actually see just one line in this anti-poverty action plan, which doesn't anywhere near cover the actual experience of people who are experiencing this, is just a bit, for me, it's not good enough. The test is, I look at that and think, would Lauren 10 years ago have had the support she needed from that? And the answer is no. So yeah, interested in your thoughts. What are you going to do to improve that, basically?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for making that observation. And I think it's a very valid observation. And I think I go back to the point that I made a little bit earlier in the meeting, is that this action plan is dynamic and it will change. And, you know, this is, you know, a perfect example of the, you know, the scrutiny process in action for me. And we can certainly take that back to the Anti-Poverty Board and relook at that and the actions that we have attributed to that. I wouldn't want you to think, though, as a council, that there was no action being taken in that space, because if David Walton was here, who's our head of housing, I'm sure he would be able to talk about a wide range of initiatives that are occurring within his service area that would absolutely be supporting people who are facing homeless or who actually are homeless. But I do think it's a valid point, and I do think it could be strengthened within the action plan, and we'll certainly take that away. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be definitely strengthened. It is a very valid point from Councillor James. And I think for me, key as well, I think we've had anything about partnerships as the RSLs. Because again, people think we control housing, and not that Councillor James thinks that, I know that, but one of our key partners in tackling homelessness and housing per se is our RSLs, and we're doing a lot of work in the background to improve scrutiny and accountability in that arena and bring new players into that arena, because it's felt stagnant and dormant for a very long time. This again is my view. But in this action plan itself, absolutely, and I think what should be fundamental in the action plan is our engagement with RSLs, because and our engagement with Homewards, which is doing a huge amount of work in this space as well. So we are doing quite a lot, but you're right, we haven't really captured it here, and we need to. But what I would want to see personally, Tanya, is, you know, our RSLs have to step up. It's not all on the council in this space. And, you know, we've put an extra, was it 1.8 million alone in this budget to try and start dealing with this, because it's a massive issue, as you rightly say, Councillor James. But it can't be all on our shoulders, because we don't control the housing stock. And so partnership and collaboration and accountability in the space for me is huge.
Yeah, probably just come back in. Obviously, it's not in the plan, and we do need to allude to that in the plan. But as you quite rightly say, Councillor James, you know, there is that element of when you are in temporary accommodation, you can't cook for yourself, therefore you end up, your bills are a lot more expensive. But there is some work going on with the one of the RSLs, especially the Nest in town, where they've got facilities where people can go and actually make their own food. I know Councillor Harvey out in Alway, they're doing something very similar in the Alway Community Centre, where they've got a community kitchen, not just for you to just go and get food to take back, but you cook your own food. So and again, it's then promoting that cooking healthy food, how you cook the food, how you budget that. I think that's something that we can look at rolling out. Perhaps that's an innovative way of looking at this, isn't there? Rather than just, you know, say with the RSLs, yes, of course they have to step forward. We have to be innovative in our offer, or working with partners in terms of that offer, getting into those community centres for those cooking offers, or working with other you know, private companies, even as you know, with the Celtic Manor, that are offering a lot of support. You know, so it again about that partnership working, about bringing that in, and about improving, not just giving somebody food from the food bank. There you go, these days important, which is grading, but as I said, fresh food, freshly cooked by themselves. The mum is cooked, you know, that's true. You would want to come to James when you're in that situation. Nothing better than making a home cooked meal for your children. You know, there's that element of that dignity within that as well, and this is what we need to do. So yeah, I think great.
No, sorry at all. You made some great points, Councillor Lacey. And Councillor Lacey reminded me of a key partner that hasn't been captured in here, which I was going to mention after this meeting, is business in the community. Councillor Jenkins knows very, very well. They're doing some great work in Gwenley. Councillor Lacey mentioned their work in Galway. I know they're looking to expand that work. They do a great job, don't they, in kitting out charities, supporting those charities, supporting those who are struggling in their community, in their place-based community, and giving them skills and the food as well. And I've been lucky enough to join Councillor Jenkins in many tours of business community. The private sector as well as RSLs are wanting to get in the space. And Newport is one of the leading cities in this area. And they've just tried to roll that out to the Rhondda, and they're copying the Newport model. So everyone's trying to move in the, the private sector, the public sector, and RSL to try and deal with this issue in a more cohesive, coordinated manner.
Okay, Councillor.
Yeah, I was going to say that's an excellent initiative that the cooking and it's raised in council. We shouldn't have any bed and breakfast accommodation across the city. I'm just wondering why we need to have another strategy in here about developing a food strategy, because coordination should be going on. We're not setting up another board. I think it's on page 5 in the standard. Develop a food strategy for Newport with support of the Food Resilience Partnership. Support most effective use of grant funding. Now, I know that all grant funding we get at the moment is being used. I just don't know why we need to just have another strategy, another board of people meeting.
Could I maybe comment on that? I think this is the thing that Gavin are leading on, and they're looking at the food integration, where they're taking it from the farm to the table and making sure there's no waste. Is this what we're talking about?
Well, it didn't say, it just said that survey of residents finding food poverty. Number of organisations supported, so I ask you a question.
I can try and bring some clarity. Clearly, if David Walter was here, he would be the person to answer this. However, my understanding is that there is grant funding that comes into the local authorities around food poverty, and the part of that is to develop a strategy to make sure not just that we eradicate food poverty within the city, but also look at sustainable food. So exactly the type of thing that you just mentioned about growing your own food, cooking your own food, making it sustainable, which feels very idyllic, but it can be done in community spaces. So it was just that is happening. I don't think there's another board attached to it, and it is. If you look at some of the, I think in the strategy itself, some of the consultation, in the report, some of the consultation that was done around the cost of living, food was one of the highest issues that was raised for people who were struggling. So it's important that we get this right. But the reason it's here in this action plan is that as an anti-poverty board, we have oversight of that, and we're looking to make sure that officers across the council, first of all, are aware of what's going on in relation to food poverty, and then we have a strategy. But also, secondly, to make sure that it's held to account. Whatever comes out of that strategy being developed, and there's obviously survey that's being done with people within Newport around food poverty issues, that learning comes into that anti-poverty board. So as officers and obviously members will be informed about so what difference has that made?
Yeah, I just assume that we were doing this for schools and education and all the other departments dedicated, and I didn't think I needed to be a separate strategy.
This would have so this is over and above, it's totally global, looking at this food strategy. Anyway,
okay.
Further information really, because I know with David working here, you'd be explaining that the work around the food poverty strategy is very much in response to some workshops that we've been involved in and David is led on. And it's a consistent feedback that we hear, and I hear it through all the groups that I'm involved in as well, in prevent and inclusion, that there is a real inequality across Newport around access to food, and whether that's a food bank or pantry or kitchen, whatever that may be, it's not equitable across the city. There are lots of initiatives going on, but it's not at all coordinated. So I know that one of the works under that strategy is trying to run a citywide approach, a citywide strategy, so that there is consistency. It doesn't matter where you live in Newport, you will be able to access the same response or the same support around food, what in context of what their needs are. So I know that that's a big drive for that work that Daniel's been putting forward.
And just emphasise the importance of that, because many people in poverty won't have access to a garden, won't have the space to grow their own. And I know in Pilgrimley there's a community allotment, isn't there, where people can go and grow their own, get their own space, have their own support, and it can become its own little community, doesn't it? So if you live in a flat, for example, or you're in an HMO, you don't have access necessarily to the space to grow your own. So I think having that city-wide understanding while we renovate a lot of our allotments, for example, understanding where that green space is, and if someone indicates they want to have their own little space near their house or flat or wherever, that we know where that space is, that there is a space for them to grow their own vegetables. And good luck to them, because I try and I use.
So I just thought, I just assumed that there was a consistency, when you said consistency across the city about food poverty and things like that. I assumed that on a neutral local level, on a Gwent, Marmot region level, we would have already been doing that. But I can understand why it's in here.
Are you content with your answer, or do we need to ask for a formal answer?
No, I'm very content, but perhaps we could put a sort of target on there about talking about inconsistency about food poverty, about how much progress we've made to reducing inconsistency in a year's time or something like that, just to have it rather than doing a survey. Thank you.
Any other questions? No?
Chair, yes, my hand has been up a while now.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Linton. We can't see you. You're more than welcome.
I got there in the end. Okay, regarding the report, I know you've got a lot of partners on board, and one of those is the RSLs. Now, in the report, RSLs play a very important role, because they're the ones that are actually in street by street, house by house. They've got lots of surveyors going in. I know they do their stock condition surveys. And myself, in my career, I pick up and report safeguarding issues, whether it be fuel poverty or the children or the house, they haven't got a bed to lay on or anything like that. Now, within the report, I don't see, they've got it in there in the report, RSLs, but what information are they actually feeding back to us? Are we capturing that? Are they actually following up on the reports? I send my report off to a safeguarding officer, but then once I've seen it, it goes. Where does it go down the line? Does it sit on somebody's desk? Are we actually capturing this very important source of information day in and day out? If you could answer that.
Sorry, Councillor Linton, I think you're working in Bristol at the moment, aren't you?
No, I'm working. I finished down south now doing damp and mould issues and reporting safeguarding issues myself. So
no, I just wondered if you found best practice in some of the areas. I know you've worked outside Newport for quite a while. Councillor Petroni.
I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's a phenomenal question, Councillor Linton, and if David Hayden might be able to answer it. Do you know it?
I can just sort of, I don't, and I made a note about how to harness the issues identified by RSLs, but certainly in relation to safeguarding issues, because I can't let that go without addressing that. if a safeguarding issue and a referral has been made, and it's been passed through to our information advice and assistance teams at the front door, you can be absolutely assured that it will get a response. You may not hear of what that action has been as a referrer, but every referral that comes in is screened, and a determination is made as to what needs to happen next. So I just wanted to make that clear around the safeguarding aspect.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you, Councillor.
Sorry, can I-
We take that up as requiring a formal response. Okay.
Yeah, can I, sorry, Chair, can I just carry on? It's all right, you've got it, but could we have in a report, or even could we ask the RSLs to come before the scrutiny forum and just explain what they're actually doing, and are these reports actually coming forward? I think it'd be a good idea to get them on board in one of these scrutiny meetings and see what they're actually reporting back. Because I know professionally I raise it, but I'm quite concerned at some points that within their forms and work on the computer, it does get lost, and I know there are lots of issues that are just sitting there and they haven't been actioned.
Okay, I know Councillor Petroni is very keen on scrutiny of the RSL, but
Oh yes, yeah. I think there's nothing stopping yourselves from inviting them. My understanding is they don't have to attend. What we're trying to get to is a position where there's a memorandum of understanding between us and all the RSLs that operate in Newport, that they do attend, if not scrutiny, at least council in some form, and take, as Councillor Linton outlines, questions from members, because I don't know about other members, but my ward, half of it is owned by RSLs. Land, most of the land is RSLs, and we need to have a better mechanism for accountability on a local level for ourselves. Again, that's not my personal view, because my understanding is the legislation set up that they're only accountable really to the Welsh Government.
yeah, we have.
Okay, can I ask another question, Chair?
Yeah, let's finish off on that one, please, Matt.
Right, okay.
Sorry, Councillor Linton. We've looked at this with other outside bodies previously, and we've got Mr. Cornwall to write to them and invite them to come and see us. But as was pointed out, they've got no reason to come and see us. In fact, most of them would shy away from us.
For your information, we did ask the university several times. They were
Councillor Linton, you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Councillor makes a really valid point. So we've spoken to Councillor Petroni and I got to Councillor Jenkins. We've got a high number of RSLs within our ward. And whenever we hear of these issues with sort of poverty, or there's an issue, we as councillors report them to the tenancy support officer and hope that gets followed through. So I guess there does need to be within this that roadmap of how we get from that tenancy support, how it comes back around and feeds into us. What I would say is Paula, who is going to be the new CEO of Edin, actually came to the Regional Partnership Board a couple of months ago and took questions off the RPB, so maybe she'll be a little bit more open to coming to.
Absolutely, and I will also extend that to Paul and others.
Right, next question, please, Councillor Linden.
Yeah, regarding the houses, homes that don't have beds and children sleep on the floor. I've actually seen it myself, and as I say, report it. And I've seen on the news and other areas, they got this, they supply mattresses or beds that from all shops and things like that donate. Have we got anything like that within the city? I know you got food banks and things, but children laying on bare floors, no carpets and the like. Because I'm well aware that under the WHQS there are forward now for carpeting properties, but anything about the beds? Can we get schemes for beds or something for these children, or even the adults?
Yeah.
I do know that certainly for people who come to us and approach us with those sorts of issues, we would support them in making an application, a DAFT application, which is for individuals and families in severe hardship. So, it's kind of basic goods, white goods, a bed, a mattress, things that, probably what we all take for granted, but are fundamental basics for some level of comfort living. So that would be an application that we would encourage people to apply for, whether that's supported by our own offices or we have a very good arrangements in place with Citizens Advice in Newport, and they spend an awful lot of time sitting down and going through those sorts of applications with individuals. So I do know that is absolutely happening.
Right. Okay then. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah,
I think on that, regarding the DAF grants as well, you know, I've been trained, you've been trained, a number of councillors have actually been trained on how to put a DAF application in, because obviously we're there, you know, people will come to us with on the whole face. So it's really, you know, Councillor Lincoln's point of view, if he's seeing these things, to get actually trained on how to make a DAF application for somebody, rather than them having to come through sometimes to the council, people would rather come to us. So it's often, you know, consider a few of us have been trained already.
Thank you, very helpful. Any more questions?
Most questions have been asked now, but I do have one thing I want to ask.
Thank you, Councillor.
So we've got under prevention, ensuring people will have fair access to council services and lessen the impacts of poverty on communities through increasing their resilience. Explain that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Prevention.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to listen to this one. So it's very much about the way we work with people. So it's very easy for council provision and services and teams not to go in and go, right, here you go, we'll fix this for you. And then we walk away. And then another problem arises and they don't know how to deal with it. So there's a lot of, it's very much the approach that we take with working with individuals. So it's a strengths-based approach. So we're working with individuals to look at what resources they have themselves, whether it's, you know, kind of emotional, psychological or practical, what are their family set up, where are the strengths in their lives that we can help them to tap into and maximise, so that we work towards people becoming resilient. They can cope with anything that life throws at them within reason. You know, we all need a bit of help from time to time, don't we? That's absolutely understandable. But, you know, kind of the fundamental basics of managing life on a day-to-day basis, I think it would be wrong of us to go in and just fix it for everybody, because we're not helping them to live their lives independently, and then we're creating dependency on services. That's not our approach. Our approach is to support people to be independent, be resilient, manage what life throws at them on a day-to-day basis, but knowing ultimately there is support out there, and the important thing is they know where to go for that support is absolutely there at the point that they need it. And that's what we mean about improving their resilience. That's helpful. Yeah.
That's one of the worries, isn't it, that people are able to contact somebody quickly,
yeah,
before they end up suffering,
yeah,
or, you know, suffering way more. Are we going to have like a dedicated number that people will be able to contact it? Because I know it's hard enough for people to have to come forward and admit to one person that they need help, to be passed on to someone else, and then someone else before it's resolved.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, there hasn't been any thinking about a designated number. I think part of the challenge for us as a council is the number of pathways into services, and we maybe have too many different things. So it's almost like, you know, if people know that is the place to contact, and through that place you'll then go to the relevant department. But so I wouldn't necessarily say that we would support at this moment in time another dedicated number, because then you have to think about how that's going to be managed. We do have the contact centre, as you're well aware, so I think it is directed to there, and also there is work being done to improve the council's website. So within that work, we'll look to try and get as much information online with direct links onto things. Yeah.
If I could just add to that, for Tanya's absolutely right. There are lots of pathways that people we constantly try to get on top of. But for those people who are not at crisis point, where they will probably enter the statutory front doors for children's services and adult services particularly, but we do have a dedicated email address within our own community connectors team, and that is really that run at lower levels. So people who might just want to reach out and speak to somebody, even if it's not the connected unit, they will find the right person to get a response to. So that is a dedicated email, and that was set up directly in response to the cost of living work that we started to do 2 or 3 years ago. But it has proved to be valuable. People use it, and that's an email that is addressed that's regularly monitored on a daily basis by the team. So I understand that's going really well, and I'm happy to share that email contact with you through Neil, if that's okay. I haven't got it in hand, but we can get. I'd be surprised if it's not on our website as well, but again, I can double check that for you. But that's for people who, you know, don't want crisis responses, but they do want to just get in somewhere and speak to somebody, not sure where to start. I would say that's a good place to start.
I think it's a phenomenal point again. There's some great points made today, and it's something we need to really explore about having a key, obvious place to go if you were struggling. So maybe maybe we could look into that, and I could maybe look at some resources into that, because I think if the other key point is if there are multiple pathways, it's a lot of work for staff as well, and it's easier for someone to get lost in the system, not due to anyone's fault. It's just there's too many pathways, and as you say, if they've made one attempt and they get dropped, they're unlikely to try again, aren't they? So it's important we understand those pathways and slim them down at least. So I'll take that back. Thank you.
Yeah, because when people they come and approach us, and we're asking them questions. So what housing association do you live in? What area do you live in? How many children do you have? So already we're frightening them off. And I don't want them to go into hiding there. I want to be able to get them help.
Yeah, and it just supports our whole approach around place-based care, which is rather than people feeling they've got to make a referral or they've got to make contact, if there's a nice safe place where they can walk through the doors and there's somebody nice to speak to them, that's what we're trying to get to in pushing our place-based model. Having offices visible in the community across Newport where people can just come through and have a contact, have a cup of tea, and we can talk to you there and then. Because I'm personally, I'm not a fan. I understand they have a role, but I am not a fan of referral processes because people get lost and they get bounced around the system. As much as we work really hard to keep that as seamless as we possibly can, it happens. So I think the way to go is upstream, be visible, be in the moment, and people can talk to people immediately when they want to. That's what we're trying to achieve. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, contact with the council, Councillor Evans, is something you normally are very keen on talking about in terms of the contact centre.
Yes.
I don't want to say anything. Okay, that's great.
Just off the back of that as well, I think the what Karen rightly said is about resilience. So it's complex. Poverty is complicated and it comes from many different areas. So going through into one route is not always the case. This I think is where the partnership working with the schools, working with the health board, working with sort of prevention services. Because if you see maybe a child that presents with autism or ADHD or other neuro, there's proof now that it's genetic. So the likelihood is that there's going to be a parent or grandparent already with perhaps autism, and that, as I said, there's a big disparity of neurodivergent older people that unrecognised that fall into poverty because they're unable to work. So again, different pieces of work going on, making Newport a neurodivergent friendly city for people to be able to work. Is then working your way out of poverty. And I think it's just the complexity of, and getting people to think in that preventative way rather than that reactive way. When we see a child in school present with maybe, unkept clothes or not having lunch, right, we ask that question, of the school will ask that question, and then the family that comes in before it's about getting it before it's too late and before they're coming to counsellors in crisis, where then of course we will help, because that's how I think getting in early is where we're able to build up that resilience, getting people to be able to look after themselves, which is rightly what they want to do. Nobody wants to come to you in crisis, please help me. They want to be able to look after themselves, and I've not met a person yet that doesn't want that as the outcome. So you said the partnership working with this is really key.
Thank you. Councillor, other than Councillor Lacey touching on this, we haven't said much about age-related poverty. and how we're going to encompass that. Because unfortunately now the universal pension provision for all is actually disadvantaging some, and even if they do get the full pension, it's still not an awful lot of money. And often women, for lots of reasons, relationship breakdowns later in life, are getting very small pensions, and they're not eligible for further help from Social Security. So how are we going to look at that? I know we can't buy money for each and every person who's fallen through the net.
I think oh, sorry.
Well, I hope the LIFT programme again would do, without using the pun, the heavy lifting on that, to identify, because I think when we talk about the older generation, they are very proud, and they're the least likely to engage with our services as a result. And so if the LIFT programme can highlight those who are struggling, like you say, that would help us understand who is struggling, and it'll also enable us, I hope, to understand what they're actually eligible for. Because when you were there, when we got the LIFT programme, even if it's half right, we're talking millions into Newport's economy and people's pockets, even if that's half right. So I would hope the LIFT programme will start addressing some of those issues, but I don't know if that's what we're going to say or something else.
It wasn't actually, but just to say about, you know, I know there's a lot of focus on children leaving education and going into homelessness, but there's a lot in here as well that doesn't matter what age you are. So the listening events, that, you know, we want to get people's views, the fact that we're trying to develop a place-based community offer across Newport. So that's not just for children and families, that's for our older generation as well, about having community centres where, regardless of your age, you know, you'll feel welcomed, you could walk in and there will be an offer, a listening ear and an offer of support. So I do take the point.
Thank you. Just in case anybody's had any IT hiccups, everybody who's online, are they content they've asked their questions?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you very much. No other questions in the room? Just to sum up then, I'm conscious this is a 3-year strategy, so it will go beyond this council. So can we expect 2 reports back to this committee before the end of this council? But even 2 reports is pushing it a bit, because if we fast forward 2 years, we'll be in the run up to the next council elections. So outside the meeting, can you propose 2 further reports back to this committee? Okay. So the officers, I'm just going to ask, can you stay while we do recommendations, just in case raises any other questions? Thank you, Chair. Thank you all. Thank you very much. As our cabinet member.
Thank you.
Councillor Mayor's comment about the credit unions. For more detail to be included in the report, in the final report. Let's hope that all various departments who are in interest will tap into the report and will link into the arrears in some meaningful way. Thanks, Aaron, to comment in 12 months' time, hopefully we'll have clear evidence of what difference the strategy has made. How actions are being progressed or if they're not. Some information on where we currently are in awards and what areas we should focus on. Comment about putting the Marmot principles in like a human language along with acronym meanings. And Councillor James's query about consulting. Give some thought about communication wider than face-to-face. could ask staff members to go through surveys for staff, go through a survey one-to-one in order to get that data. Comment about taking information back to the Anti-Poverty Board and relook at actions to include more information about homelessness and strengthen it in the action plan. Councillor Emmons' comment about putting a target on food poverty and how much progress we've made in a year's time.
Sorry, just on that, Chair, it's not due to be developed till April 2026, so I guess it'd be out of time actually, but so it's not developed till a year's time. The time it's made progress could be through another election, so if somebody else to look at perhaps in 2027.
And Councillor Linden's query about the RSLs, what information do they feedback to us about safeguarding issues, how it's being captured and how are they following up on the safeguarding reports?
Sorry, just on that one, Councillor Linton, is it still your wish that we invite, I suppose we headed now, to come and see us?
Well, it would be appreciated if they could, if we could invite them along and see them. I know because they're merging now, Newport City Homes, Pobble, the new, and they got a new director. Perhaps they might be more able to come along or more willing to come along as well as Pobble.
We'll take up your suggestion and I suppose we'll ask Mr. Cole to write to them, I guess.
Yeah, and it gives us.
On Miss Evans, I don't know if you've got any relationships with him.
I think, no, I don't, Chair, but I think sort of David Walton certainly would as the head, and I think David sits under Paul Jones, Strategic Director. So it needs to be Paul or
well, we'll ask Mr. Walden to ask Mr. Jones.
Can I suggest through you, Chair, that if the work programme is correct, the corporate safeguarding annual report comes to the next meeting. That might be very relevant to ask if they'd like to end on the basis of actions they can take to assist with corporate safeguarding.
Sorry, I'm sorry, what do you mean? Do you want
the RSLs?
Yeah, right, okay. Well, I think
we were talking earlier about to the point about going into people's properties and being able to, and I guess the partnership be they have also duties, statutory duties as well, just to get information about what they're actually doing. It might be helpful.
And
when we're talking about safeguarding, so that's just a.
They might be right in the middle of the merger, so you know that will ask. But if they could come in the autumn, something like that.
Yeah.
If they can't make this one, we're going to try.
I think it should be helpful if they had a specific reason to come along, not general. Come and see us. To focus it a bit more.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they have safeguarding officers within these organisations.
you would hope so.
Well, yeah.
Very clear procedures.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, have we had any feedback? I know the class is our partner, so being a partner, we should have some information that they fed back to us. Would we have any or not?
Sorry, from who?
From the RSL.
No, we
the
don't.
class is our partners, you see. So if the partnership, we talk.
Yeah, Councillor Petroni made that point, and if you recall, there was a proposal went to Democratic Services to bring these in as part of council meetings, and that was rejected. So I'm unaware of any feedback we get other than what Councillor Petroni said.
Well, I have got another suggestion. Is they're under the Welsh government? No, obviously they got a feedback, all of ourselves feedback to them. So would they have any information that we could ask them, that we could have on poverty or like what I just raised, the issues?
To that, I'm afraid, Jason,
Well,
it's not within my
Okay.
sphere of knowledge
Prepare to look into the principle.
of
Are the cells feed into the Welsh Assembly?
So I just want to be clear about the question, so apologies. So I think, is the question that to ask Welsh Government what information the RSLs feed it to them in relation to the poverty agenda?
Yes, for households, for people that are at risk. I know it is in their agenda under the WHQS homes and HHSRS that they put it in there now about poverty and the like. So if the only umbrella is for them, could we ask the Welsh Assembly or whatever department housing to feed back to us, whoever the cabinet member is for the housing, if we could have a report on Newport?
Okay, so we can certainly ask the head of, I would suggest an action for David Walton to ask Welsh Government what information the RSLs are providing to them in relation to households in poverty, and then whether we can, within that information, whether we can extract Newport specific data.
Yes,
I can certainly ask that question. Yeah.
Are you familiar with the acronyms Councillor Lincoln used?
Well, housing standard quality, whatever.
Can you give
Welsh
us?
Quality Housing Standard.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the other one you used?
Under the Welsh Quality Housing Standards. Okay.
And the other one you used?
Oh God, it's under health and safety in the homes. It's just gone now.
Well,
I'm sure.
Would you perhaps look it up and come back to Neil with that?
I will know in 2 minutes.
Thank you.
So, Chair, I'm not sure if I was on RSL and something went about me to ask somebody else. I think it'd be better to ask them first.
No.
Liaison associations, because I would be pretty angry if somebody had gone above my head and said, "Oh, you've gone straight to the Welsh Government to get information," rather than going to them. So I could ask David Walton to.
So,
and if they don't, then obviously you can.
Sure. So I guess the committee then, I guess the action would be for David to approach the RSLs to establish what information they have in relation to households in poverty in Newport.
Are you content with that, Councillor Linton?
Yes, and it's the housing health and safety rating system.
Okay, thank you. No, you're content with the action that we asked?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Yeah.
But
That's it. And was there any other comments the committee would like to make in relation to the strategy itself?
Did we mention about lessons learned?
It's on most of the side. If you could just repeat that, please, Councillor.
Well, it's listen. When we take forward each new strategy, we had lessons learned from the previous strategy.
So would this be
Good and bad? I appreciate we don't have this particular strategy, but it would be part of another strategy. This child poverty has been on our agenda for forever, so yes, as it should do. So it would have come from another. Don't ask me which one it came from, but it would have been included in a beam or something like.
So to take the lessons learned from whatever previous strategy was before this.
Good and bad.
we didn't actually look at it in the meeting, but we're all content with the membership of the anti-poverty board. It's on page 32 of your. It seems fairly all-encompassing, but just in it.
Remember, was it just officers on that?
Yeah.
And it said a report to the executive, but which executive does it report to?
So for clarity, the initial report will go into the executive board, which was chaired by the chief executive and the directors. However, it would come, that annual report would then come in to this committee meeting.
So the annual report to the executive, which is mentioned, I think, in terms of reference, does that, when you say executive, is that the cabinet or?
Sorry, no, it's
or
it's the officer. Sorry, I apologies. I should make that clear. So it's the executive board,
right,
which is just officers. Newport, yes, sorry. So just officers, but then that would then go there initially, but then come on to this committee following that. So an opportunity almost to give a bit of internal quality assurance and checks and balances before it comes into committee.
So the executive board is the chief exec and strategic directors.
Yes.
And then it's at their behest where it goes, if it needs to go to the leader of the council, or it comes here.
It would, I think in the report it suggests that it would come here.
We could make recommendations to cabinet, then it would go to cabinet as well.
Yeah.
So the onus is on us then to look at this report in due course and us to make recommendations to cabinet for,
yes, well,
maybe that they read the whole reports, or maybe we highlight actions out of it. Yeah. Goodness me, it's going to be a massive membership for this anti-poverty board. Okay. Yeah. Do we have anything else?
I vote on mine unless there's any other comments, recommendations the committee would like to make.
I think I stressed this. I am keen to see that we get some sort of action on this before the council terminates in 2027. So thank you very much for coming on this morning.
thank you.
Right, I have a look at your scrutiny report then, please.
We discussed the pre-meeting and chasing up a comment and recommendations made at the January meeting. So as soon as we get feedback on it, myself or Sam will send that to the committee and we can update those tables. Also looking to do is the way that we take feedback, such as if the comment or recommendation has been accepted by officers in cabinet, if so, what they're going to do, if not, why. So we're looking to do that for the new cycle meetings. We're also meeting with directors and heads of service at the moment, discussing the topics for the new year of the forward work programme. Hopefully for the 24th of April meeting, where we discuss the corporate safeguarding annual report and strategic plan for procurement, we'll have something in draft to show the committee. Gives you a chance as well to suggest topics to be added on to the forward work programme as well.
Okay. So you come to that. So
that's my section.
So if we look at actions and monitoring, there's still quite a lot of actions.
Yeah.
And by the time you put the extra 6 actions in there, that's going to span to well, 2.5 pages more, than something like that.
Sorry, Chair, just on the forward work programme, we've only got up to next meeting. Have they not got dates in the diary for after April?
Well, they have to be agreed at annual general meeting of the council, don't they?
They were agreed, however, we will provide by management, but as soon as we agree with the draft forward work programme with heads of service and strategic directors, then we can present it to you.
Because we do it in January, I think.
Yeah,
the trust, yeah, but I'm just thinking it would be useful to have the dates in the diaries, because I assume it's going to be to the Thursday. morning. I think you're closing the Civic Centre on a Thursday as well as a Friday and a Monday. Or
I'm sure you'll be self-advised.
yeah. But yeah, I think it would be helpful to dates in the diary as soon as possible. Obviously, I would have sent my apologies for the next meeting. I will be here. So.
Thanks very much, Councillor. I've noted your apologies for the next meeting. I will with the bank managers about the dates as well. We brought in the calendars.
Thank you.
Do we have a procedure that if Councillor Evans wanted to submit a question to the next meeting, even though he wouldn't be here, we could accept it? Or
That's fine. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
That would just come from yourself, won't you?
yeah.
Yeah.
Everything on my section, yeah. So as soon as we receive the feedback from January's meetings, we'll send it to the committee as soon as possible.
Right, I think that concludes today. Thanks very much. Can you take us offline, please?